According to Wikipedia, the definition of thanatophobia, or death anxiety, is a feeling of dread when one thinks of the process of dying or ceasing to be. It is unfortunate that the intellectual ability humans have to plan for their future comes with such an unsettling realization, one of its own eventual demise. And the constant suppressed anxiety that comes from this realization is something that haunted us ever since we were able to understand the concept of our own mortality. Now, I will continue with a bit of a disclaimer. In a realistic sense, fear of death is a very important instinct that is essential for survival of any species, since it is the essential component of self-preservation. It stops individual specimens from being near predators, in dangerous environments or circumstances, or even doing direct harm to themselves. In a lot of ways, this primal fear is a key component of our own prosperity and success, especially when combined with our ability to plan for the future. But in modern times, and paired with our long-term planning abilities, it seems that this instinct hinders us more than it helps us. So in this video, I will put a bit of a different solution to this problem and explain why I find it silly. And in order to make this simpler to understand, I will present 3 concepts. If I ask you to imagine how it is to be dead, excluding some religious concepts, you might describe it as endless, infinite darkness. I find this idea particularly infuriating, as perception of time as well as light is a product of the conscious mind. A live mind, that is. If you're dead, you cannot perceive time nor light, so this idea falls short. But I have some ideas to present to you on how death might feel like. Have you ever been awake for a long time doing some excruciating physical or mentally tasking work? If you have, you might remember being very tired, going to bed in the evening, closing your eyes and opening them in what feels like seconds after, and it's sunny outside, you feel well rested and energized. You did not have any dreams, or at least not remember them, and the whole sleep felt like a blink of an eye. Or, alternative way to present this to you, have you ever been under general anesthesia? If you did, and everything went well, this is the way you probably remember it. You were in an operating theater, there were few nurses around you preparing you for the procedure, maybe even chit-chatting with you. Then they administered anesthetic, and shortly after, and a bit more of chit-chatting and probably counting, you hear your name being called, as you open your eyes and see yourself in another room, with a few medical staff nearby telling you the results of the procedure. Regardless of how long the procedure took, you have no experience of time passing, nor feeling of darkness, except that brief moment where you regain consciousness and still have the eyes closed. Maybe that is where the idea of eternal darkness came from. What is more surprising is that we do not have the same idea when we look at the time prior to our birth. From a conscious perspective, the time before your birth is the same as the time after you die, yet you do not think about it as eternal darkness, or darkness up to a point, or darkness at all, yet you spend a lot of time in a dark womb before you were born. This is probably tied to a fact that reliable long-term memory is formed sometime after birth, so unlike in examples of general anesthesia or really deep slumber, you do not have memories of any darkness, and therefore you do not take this view on time before your birth. And you certainly do not think, finally, after your birth, even though the universe existed for tens of billions of years before you. In short, the passage of time without conscious perception has no meaning to us. Saying that we live in a massive universe would be a massive understatement. Just the observable part of our universe, from the perspective of our solar system, or Earth, or reasonably nearby astronomical object, is roughly 90 gigalight-years in diameter, which is a distance light, and speed of light being the fastest moving speed in our universe, travels in 90 billion years. Now, this is just the part that we can observe, due to the speed limit of the universe being the speed of light and expansion speed of the universe, etc. And even the most conservative estimates in the case of the finite size of our universe predict sizes that are billions of times bigger than that. On the other hand, the timescale of our universe is equally mind-boggling. From its Big Bang conception to our current time, we estimate that almost 14 billion years have passed. Yet estimated end is far more complex to determine, but for the purpose of this video we will take the degenerate era as its end. the point in time where even white dwarfs, which are the final stages of star life cycle, where they exhaust their energies and fade, leaving the universe that is very void of light, matter and heat, which are necessary for life in form we currently know. With our current understanding of physics and astronomy, this degenerate era is roughly millions of trillions of years into the future. To top that off, the estimated number of atoms in the observable universe is 10 to the power of 80. Given the lowest estimated sizes of the universe, in the case it's finite, being billions of times bigger than the observable universe, multiplying these numbers gives us even more ludicrous number. Keep in mind these are the most conservative numbers of our observed reality. I do apologize if I cause the confusion with these massive numbers, as truly understanding them for this video is not really that important. And I could have thrown in multiverse or multiple and recurring Big Bangs, possibility of big crunch cycles and other theorized possibilities of our reality, but there is no need. What we have for now is a massive space with a massive number of particles within the massive time frame. That practically leads to infinite possibilities, arrangement of particles, and outcomes, especially on the size scale that we observe, which is very tiny in comparison. There are two additional ideas I would like to present to you here that are pointing to the same conclusion but have different complexity. So, I will start with a simpler one that you might have heard of, infinite monkey theorem. This theorem speculates that if you had an infinite number of monkeys randomly hitting the keys on the typewriter or keyboard for an infinite amount of time, one of them would type out the complete works of William Shakespeare. This is not intended as a jab towards the great Shakespeare's skills as a writer, but a certain outcome in cases where you have an infinite probability. In fact, when you think about it, an infinite number of monkeys that are given an infinite amount of time will actually type out complete works of William Shakespeare infinite amounts of times. Also, there will be an infinite number of the same books with the same typo. Infinity guarantees us these outcomes. Now, hopefully this idea was not too complex for understanding, because another theory with similar premise would be the Boltzmann's brain theory. Ludwig Boltzmann theorized that, given the size and the time frame of our universe, there are higher chances that our brains just formed at some random point in space and time, complete with false memories of it existing in a universe, than the universe being formed in a way science describes it. While we are going to avoid pointing out to some absurdities with this theory, the premise of the mind being formed out of sheer probability is a concept we are going to focus on. Both of these theories imply that with infinite probability, or even near infinite, every conceivable outcome will become certainty. Being aware of your own existence is a marvelous thing. You experience the world through your senses, memorize your experiences, build the internal experience of the world around you, and grow the understanding of the reality you are in, even up to a point of being able to predict certain things with variable levels of certainty. Yet, from a perspective of a lifespan of the universe, our life is laughably short. And while we have almost morbid curiosity on what comes after your death, very rarely we consider what happens prior to us existing. In order to better understand this, I will require you to think about it from two different perspectives, from the perspective of the observer's time and from your own perspective. If you could look at your existence through your eyes alone, the best description would be, it just happened. One day you opened your eyes, you listened, you learned, you experienced and you were, without any context given to you. Yet from the perspective of the universe, or someone else as the observer, a very peculiar set of events happened that led to you existing. And no, I'm not referring to the birds and the bees. There was a very precise set of conditions that led to you existing. A certain arrangement of particles that made you spawn into existence. Was it arrangement of your DNA? Probably not, because identical twins have the same DNA, yet they separately exist and separately experience existence. Maybe it was a certain arrangement somewhere in the brain that led to you existing, some part that we still do not have a complete understanding of. Or maybe it happens after your inception, later, during formation of the brain? Possible. It is very hard to pinpoint this exact condition, since it is easy to argue that if some part of your DNA was different, you would possibly be blonde instead of brown-haired, but it would still be you. And the complete biological body is certainly not what it takes, since if you clip nails, lose a finger, or even an arm, it's still you. There are very few essential biological parts that are required for us to consciously exist, and probably even less to spawn your consciousness into existence. even if it is a complete brain at some point of infancy or adulthood. While still a very complex organ, not all parts of it have to be exact for it to still be you. You could have seen different houses, lived in different places, gathered different experiences, and it would still be you, but with different memories, values, and behavioral patterns, etc. If I am allowed to speculate, if there is this physical binder or condition to spawn you into existence, and if I speculate it is in the brain, the volume of it would be the size of a teaspoon. Now, a teaspoon of brain matter is very complex, but it's something that has a very fine complexity. With the whole concept presented so far, I will make a few statements. Universe is a massive probability sandbox with a massive time frame. And even if not infinite, the number of particles in that sandbox provide us with staggering probabilities that we can take into account, especially on our experience scale. On top of that, compared to the size and scale of the universe, our presumed initial conditions that led to us spawning into existence are laughably tiny, and from that point, very probable. And even more surprising, reoccurring. What does that mean? It's simple. The exact arrangement of initial conditions that led to you existing, being born, being spawned into reality, will certainly happen again. When, you ask? Well, this is difficult to calculate due to us not being able to quantify the initial conditions for your existence, but does it really matter? Well, it will happen. You exist now. Eventually, you will expire, your cognition will stop, and your experience of the elements of reality will stop too. You will not observe the universe, but even more importantly, you will not perceive time. So, the question of when does not really matter in this context. From your perspective, you will close your eyes, just like during the deep sleep or general anesthesia, and in that body, you will not open them again. Your body will decompose, your brain will too, your memories will disintegrate, but that spark that brought you in the first place will happen again. You will be able to experience the universe again. You will not have previous experiences, you will not have the previous memories. You might exist in a different form than you are accustomed now, but you will be again. You are immortal through the sheer probability that is observed in our universe. A more observant and critical among you might question the ease this video provides on the issue of death anxiety, since the time of peace and greatly increased quality of life is something that came quite recently in our history, and while current time is not perfect, the majority of our existence was survival, suffering and pain. And there are no reasonable predictions on what qualities in these regards we will have in the future. I can rebuttal these questions with a question. Do pain and suffering really matters in case of our immortality, even if we are not currently aware of it? But that would be a fairly moot, subjective and temporary point. So I will say that the purpose of this video is completely different, and it's barely the intro into a grander hypothesis I am planning to put for your consideration and scrutiny. In a way, this is just an opening move that should not be overanalyzed for now, as I do realize there are some intentional flaws and misdirections in the presented arguments. I can only hope that you enjoyed the video, and thank you for our time.